Welcome back to the Rugby League Outsiders podcast. My name's Craig.
And my name's Karl.
Today we have got an incredible guest. We talked to Mark Almond of the Aston Warriors. He's one of the brainchilds behind the formation of the new club here in the Midlands. And this season, in their first season, they've gone completely unbeaten. An incredible feat from a good bunch of guys. We talk about his route through into rugby league. He spent a long time with Birmingham Bulldogs, the oldest club in this region, before moving on to Aston Warriors and setting up his own enterprise there. We also talk about his background in the film industry. It's a great episode, and both Karl and I thoroughly enjoyed recording it, so stay tuned. And as always, remember to subscribe to get more episodes just like this. Mark, just start off and just give us a little down and dirty 2 minutes. What brought you through life, through rugby league, to be sat in this chair right now?
My journey into rugby league was a bit strange. I grew up in the inner city of Birmingham, and my school definitely wasn't a rugby school, and it was seen as a posh boy sport. And it was my cousin that said to me, "I'm trying this new sport. It's called rugby league. Why don't you?"
New sport.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, isn't it?
It's strange, isn't it? Why don't you come and give it a go? And me and my friend Rich Bernard, who came along with me to that first session, we went to inner city schools. We grew up in Newtown, Lozelles and Handsworth, which are not, nice areas. So we thought it was pretty streetwise kids. We was like, let's give it a go, this rugby. So we came along, and we realised that then there was two codes of rugby. There wasn't just one.
And it wasn't the posh boy sport.
No, there was, because as soon as there was a few northern lads that were already playing there, and it was like, oh, is this that posh lad sport? And I think it was Fox, Darren Parkin, came up to me and went, listen, lad, none of that rah-rah stuff here. So this is proper rugby. We don't throw the ball away. And he just went into the whole spiel. He was like, okay. So we thought, we're bound to be good at this because we think we're hard. And what a shock. After 10 minutes, it was like, it ain't about being hard, and you need to be fit. You shouldn't really be smoking and doing a couple of points after work. And these lads who don't look hard actually hit pretty hard.
Yeah.
The one lad that played there, James Topham, who was still playing up until not long ago, he was a school teacher. He was like, school teacher, what's he going to be like? And then we did some tackling practice and then some full contact stuff. And he put my head up my arse at one point. So it was we quite quickly realised this is something else, and it's not a posh boy sport, and we was kind of quickly accepted, and we just enjoyed it. And Tony Williams, who was the skipper at the time, he was coaching along with Jamie Walsh, who was ex-Hasselford. He also had the highest televised try scoring moment, because at the beginning of Grandstand it was him putting the ball down. So he was one of the coaches there. And then there was a guy called Jim Eccles, who was ex-Blackbrook. So he played a decent standard of rugby league. So he was kind of in the right environment already. So we went down and he said, are you coming back next week? And we kind of went, yeah. And to be honest with you, it was like, this is like too much. But we went back with a lot of encouragement from my cousin Daz, who played there. And we just kept going and kept going. And then at the time we was playing, it wasn't really... it wasn't a summer sport then. We was playing in like Mazwala, which was Midlands and South West Rugby League Association. I might have got that wrong. So, and then some of the Pennine, we was playing against Pennine teams. So that was really how I got into rugby league.
So I just want to kind of bridge, so people looking at this, they'll see you in your Aston Warriors kit.
Yeah.
But we're going to be talking a little bit about Birmingham as well. You've got a proud history with Birmingham, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So just start us off and just give us a little bit of an intro into that transition, then we'll kind of pedal back and chat about your time with Birmingham.
So the Warriors really was born out of my belief, or a few of the old lads' belief, that there was definitely a place for rugby league within North Birmingham. And we'd put a game together, a charity game for the Rob Burrows Foundation, which we did last year. It seems like ages ago, but last year, September time. And we thought it was a bit like Field of Dreams, you make it and they will come, because we thought who's going turn up. We'd had my 50th birthday party, and a lot of the lads turned up. So it was like, why don't we try, you know?
Yeah.
And we had like 38 guys turn up. It was like unbelievable. So we turned up. Jay Spafford put a side together. We played we wanted a proper vets game, but Jay couldn't really put that together. I mean, we didn't really give him much time. And it ended up being a Masters game, which we'd never played before, which kind of went a bit wrong because there was a lot of big hits going in, you know, people in gold shorts just getting pumped.
Yeah,
and
I heard about
I've been there.
We heard about this, didn't we? Yeah, we
yeah,
did.
so, but after that, the game, everybody stayed behind, and there was a lad, obviously, that I'd met, called Richard Squires, who you've had on here already.
Yeah.
And he was, and
Well, his name's Richard, but I've heard he prefers Dick.
Dick Squires, yeah. D Head, I think we keep that one in there. Now, Rich was down there, and I'd already had a conversation with Rich, being a Bradford fan, and obviously Rich being a Bradford fan, and we'd gone through the whole, you know, how did you end up supporting Bradford? And I was like, wow, there was a programme that used to be on TV called The Gaffer, and the character in there was called Selwyn Froggatt, played by Bill Maynard, and he always had this mug that said Bradford Northern on there. And I was like, to my dad, what's that? And he was like, oh, it's rugby league side. And I was like, I didn't think much of it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And my dad said, I think they were called Steam Pigs or something before.
Yeah.
They had a nickname of
Steaming Pigs, yeah.
something like that. And after that, when Birmingham come down, when we went down to Birmingham, at the time people were twinned with different sides, and Birmingham were twinned with Bradford, so that came there. So there was this connection with Rich, and after this game going on, I was like, the Bulldogs were at Avery at the time were a bit touch and go if they were going to stay there because of financial reasons and other things that were going on behind the scenes. And I said to Rich, you know, it'd be great to maybe bring the Bulldogs down here. I'd definitely see Rugby League back in North Birmingham. So the initial approach was put to Sean and the boys that are doing, you know, wonders at the Bulldogs about coming back down to Aston, but the decision was made that, you know, they thought that they were best to stay where they were. But then once you've opened your mouth and you've opened this great idea, you know, I said to Rich, well, what do you think? Do you think if, again, Field of Dreams moment, if we make it happen, will people come? And he's like, let's give it a go. So within a few months, we started dealing with the RFL, and, you know, which was a bit of a nightmare to communicate with them. Then this new team.
Sorry, were you doing the majority of the communication there?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Rich, he painted a slightly different picture there, didn't he? He said it was like, oh, it's pretty easy. Like,
Well, there was a bit of a rumour going around that there was this new team going to be in Aston Warriors. And apparently we got hold of it from somewhere, and we like just announced it. It was like, oh, there's going to be a new team in Birmingham. And Rich basically said to us, at that point, we weren't even registered, so I don't know if that's true or...
It is true, but it wasn't for want of trying on our part. It was like, it was kind of, it was hard work trying to get it done, you know, nobody's fault. Obviously the RFL are busy, and, you know, a new team being born in Aston are probably the least of their worries, but we was pushing. Once we got like the initial contact and then got it going, you know, I think then Rich took it on and then kind of, you know, flew with it a bit more.
Right. But
But that initial part of doing it was hard, and we had to, I think Rich already touched on it, we already had like the Aston committee before it, they'd seen what he'd brought down. We was trying to decide on a name, and I'm a Villa fan, so I was like, why don't we do Aston Villains? Let's do it claret and blue. We can sell all this merchandise. We'll be quids in.
yeah.
And then I was like, but what about if there's some blue noses that are really good rugby players and they don't want to play for the Aston Villains? We might be like putting some players out here. So I was like, let's go simple, Aston Warriors. And Rich was like, why Aston Warriors? And when you look around the core of the team that were at Aston at the time, there were so many different denominations from different cultures, and we thought, oh, it's quite tribal. Let's, you know, it was that connection. I know it sounds a bit melancholy, but it was like, you know, there was a guy from Ghana, there's a guy from St. Lucia, you know, there's a Muslim guy, a Sikh guy, you know, and it kind of came from there. So we're like, let's do the Warriors, and that's where it basically came from.
No, it's incredible story and interesting. And I think you're doing the RFL. Well, I think you're giving a bit more credit. I think they should jump on any new club, you know, and give them a hand up. And it's a shame,
especially out of the heartlands.
Yeah.
I do think it's easier for northern folk to have a pop at the RFL than it is for southern folk, because I don't think that's, you know, I don't think they're.
You take it very well.
I just love the game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I want to see it prosper, and I know you can just see that the game out there doesn't get that much encouragement, and you know, it should. The going back to the birth of Birmingham Rugby League, like John and Joy Simpkin, who really started rugby league within Birmingham, he'd gone to a game. I think he'd gone to watch a Leeds game. I don't know why, sorry. But he'd heard this noise and gone down, and instantly him and his wife they picked up the game within a game.
Yeah.
And they fell in love with it. What a great sport. It's fast, you know, it's really it's a sport that brings you in straight away. So you're like, this is so exciting, you know, and it's so infectious. And that's what happened to me and my wife is, you know, I went down, we watched a few games, and then she was like, oh, I can understand this game. So I think from that point, then moving forward, it was something that was always going to be there.
So, I mean, what you've just said there is something I've been talking about for years. It's like, you know, I think sometimes rugby union players, teams, you know, they're quite proud that the fact is it's very strategic. It's almost like a game of chess. But for a spectator, I don't find that, you know, very either exciting or, you know, engaging. And I think just a bit more of a simple sport, it does draw you in a little bit. So it's encouraging to hear that.
Do you have any allegiance for any rugby union side, or are you
Rugby unions?
Yeah, are you full on Birmingham Rugby League man?
Well, I guess my allegiance to rugby union when I was playing rugby league and we was playing in like National League 3, which was a good level. Just before that, my uncle played rugby union, but there was two like working class teams within Birmingham. There was one union side. There was one Birchfield Rugby Union, which came out of the old Lucas's factory, which became GKN, Great King Street Sports. So that was more of a working class rugby union side. And there was another side that was Kynoch Rugby Union, which were from the old munitions factory. Again, more of a rugby union side. So I'd gone to play. I played rugby league and then ended up playing rugby union for Birchfield. And so I'd say rugby union side, I'd say it was Birchfield first. But then that team then merged with Kynoch because of just not enough players, and then they became the Birmingham Barbarians. That team became more of a social side, then sadly disappeared. But when the two teams merged, a lot of us that played for the Bulldogs ended up going to Aston because we'd found a home at Aston.
Right.
So that's where that rugby union connection comes from.
So I think we've said that Birmingham was the oldest club in the Midlands.
35 years.
Yeah, 35 years. Now, there must have been some peaks and troughs in that journey. Can you pick out a few moments throughout their, you know, from their history?
Yeah, I'd like to learn about the early days of Birmingham, actually, and when you was playing in those, was it like the Pennine Leagues and things like that?
So I've got some name on phone. 2 seconds, let me pull it up, because Tony, I couldn't remember the name of the team, and he told me earlier. So Tony started there in 94. As I say, it was set up in 89 by John and Joy Simpkin. They just loved the game, set it up, and hoped people would come, and they did. They played their first game in 89. Those first years, they turn up with like 8-9 players and try and get a game against sides that had come and play them or they'd travel. Tony got there in 1994, and they were playing against like Not City, who were an offshoot of the Mansfield Marksmen, which were like seasoned rugby league side. And at that point, you couldn't get a game of rugby league unless you went to these areas. So we started off with playing in Muswala, which was Midlands and South West Rugby League Association, and some of the Pennine games. And at the time, we was playing against people like Derby, who then became part of the conference.
Yeah.
Toyota had a side at the time that played at the factory.
Where were they based? Is it Burn? Is it?
Yeah,
near Burn. Near Burn.
Yeah. So they had a side. It was I think their kit was orange and black, something to do with Toyota, but they were somehow sponsored, and it was born out of the factory. Then we had our arch rivals, and they were a hard team. It was a team that came out of Mansfield called Garibaldi. They were like a pit village. Like these guys knew how to play.
Shivering already.
They knew how to play rugby league, and you'd go up there, and you're like, the crowd were just as harsh as the players, to be fair. And then the reverse fixture, it was always quite highly contested, let's say, at that time. You know, the dark arts of rugby league, but much more of an allowed thing back then. But we had great fun, and there was always a lot of respect there. And the fact that we always felt proud that it was predominantly Birmingham side, but we had players, that were northern lads or they were at uni, that were part of, northern families that were just at uni in Birmingham. So we'd play those teams and in the winter. So some of us would play Union on a Saturday and League on a Sunday at the time. I couldn't do that now. I played that Veterans game. I couldn't walk for 4 weeks. So we'd do that a lot and just loved it. There was another team called Clown. I remember playing against Clown. They had this big Fijian centre. And we had a lad that come from, where did he come from? Where's Down Under Leisure?
Wigan.
Yeah, but there's a Black Rod. Was it Black Rod or something like that where that is?
Is that St Helens way?
So he was from around there, and his name's Mark Platt, and he come in and we thought, he looks like he do. He only had one eye. Sorry, Platty, I've got to put that one in there. And he come up, he's like, I know, and he knew how to play, and this big Fijian lad come running out. Platty just like cleaned him out. He was like, this is another good lad that we've got into all these we play. So that's the kind of people that we were playing at the time before the conference was born. Because we went into the conference and then went into National League 3, but obviously we went into the conference. There was this more bigger pool of teams that were there.
How did you get on in the conference? Did you have many successful years in it, or?
Yeah, I mean, we made the playoffs in the conference, and then we got into National League 3. That was our highest point. At that point, a lot of the Midlands team had come in then. So we had Jason. As I said, we was all twinned with different Super League sides. So Jace Spafford had the Worcester Saints. We had obviously Birmingham Bulls because we was twinned with Bradford. Jace was twinned with Saints. Then it was Chester Warriors. There was all different teams that was from the Midlands that were then twinned with different Super League clubs.
Was that an RFL? I would say, was that an RFL initiative?
Yeah, I think it was. I remember. So Stuart Fielden's brother, Jimmy Fielden, come down when they used to bring the academy players down they'd travel all the way from Bradford to Birmingham. I don't know what happened within the other teams, but we'd have the academy coach come down and coach us. And I remember Stuart Fielden's brother, Jimmy Fielden, being one of the academy players that come down and coached us. So yeah, it was definitely an RFL thing. I think it was something that, obviously there was a big distance there, and I think Chester had the Wolves. I can tell a story about that as well. Chester had Warrington Wolves. So I think it's something that if they want to spread rugby league out of the heartland again, and they did that that connection, I think it would really help. I mean, it definitely helped us and brought a lot of interest into it.
But that was in a day as well where the country wasn't as connected as it is right now. You know what I mean? It was like the world was a bigger place then, wasn't it? You know, not too long ago either. And perhaps we could do that even easier nowadays.
Yeah, it was an initiative that fell off that I thought was. It wasn't an expensive thing to do.
Yeah.
But it definitely helped and to help grow rugby league out of the heartland. I think that's something that was. In a small way, was massive. The guys would turn up every Wednesday. We trained on a Wednesday then at the old Moor Lane, which is opposite Witten Cemetery in Birmingham. And they'd be there on time. They'd run the session. They'd do it once every couple of weeks, I think, so it wasn't an every week thing. But we learned so much from them, as you would, people at that calibre coming down and coaching you. It's great. But I remember the Gloucester Warriors, Chamber Wigan, they had like Jason Robinson and Andy Farrell and that doing sessions.
All right.
So it was a massive thing.
Yeah, big deal. Yeah.
This were back in the day when Super League used to take games on the road, didn't they?
So
I remember Bradford playing in like Northampton or somewhere like
it was
that.
At that game. So what they did for us there, I'm sure it was that game where Sean Edwards had gone back to play, or he'd gone to play for Bradford, which was like a massive thing.
Yeah, I didn't like him. I still didn't get on board with me when he had a Bradford shirt on.
Jimmy Lowe's is my all-time favourite player. So, it was good to see him there, and like what a spectacle to have him there, and a bit of a coup. And we went to Northampton. We was playing Halifax Blue Sox, Bradford versus Halifax at the time. And what they did for our younger lads when we was coaching the kids is they did a half-time game. I think it was like 10 minutes each way. It might not have even been that much, 5 minutes each way, whatever it was, whatever they let us have. And the lads loved it. There was in this big thing. It was growing rugby league again out of the heartland. Again, a massive thing that probably wasn't that expensive to do. The only downside for us that day, some of these boys are grown up now, was they wanted a picture at the end with the cheerleaders. I think it was the Halifax cheerleaders. And my lasting memory is my wife putting her hand over her eyes when one of the cheerleaders shouted, "Whichever one of you youngsters has got their hand on my arse, can you remove it?" So that's my other memory of that day. But it was great, and the lads loved it. And
it was a success, wasn't it?
Yeah, man.
I remember these games happening in the Northampton. There might have been one in Derby.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't carry on with this. It baffles me to this day. Like it were really like these games were sellout games, weren't they? Yeah, and I think we've ended up with Magic Weekend, haven't we?
Yeah.
And now that's evolved into something else. And now we're playing it in Leeds. So
again, it's the short-sightedness. Maybe it is like financial or some other restriction that's there. But if they want to continue to grow rugby league, you've only, like me, I'm the perfect example. I didn't even know what this game was.
Yeah.
But you infect someone with that rugby league virus, if you like.
Yeah.
And it stays with them forever, and it becomes like a massive part of you. When I went to work in New Zealand, I was watching the footy show every day. It was like, this is like brilliant. What
Bo knows best.
Yeah. It was just like the best thing. But if they want to continue to grow, and there's all these reports in there about London not doing so well at the moment, which is a shame, because one of our own lads who came through the Bulldogs youth system, Jacob Jones, he's playing for the Broncos. He's on loan from Lee. He came through our youth system, so he was a Sutton rugby union player, but he played all his junior rugby league at the Bulldogs. I coached him, Pinky coached him, and then when the Bulldogs kind of left Aston and the youth section dropped away, he went to the Bears, I think, and he went through their system.
Right.
But yeah, Jacobs, it's great to watch him on the screen playing for the Broncos on loan. It's a success story. Jacob was at all these. He went to grand finals with us again. He got the bug, and that was it.
Well, there's a future guest.
I know. So I just wanted to still with Birmingham. What would you say the identity of a player from the Birmingham club is? What does it mean to be? If you had a style of rugby or a certain ethos, what would that be?
I think in the days that when I played, we had a very aggressive pack.
Yeah.
We could dominate quite easily. We had players from high levels of rugby union within Birmingham. Moseley were at the peak at the time, and we had Rob and Terry Sigley that played for us. Terry went on to play for Gloucester and the England Lions. Rob is like chairman of rugby at Bourneville at the moment, where the current Bulldogs play. So we had those. We had Paul Cadman, who was our skipper at the time, again another aggressive enforcer. Simon Smith, our loose forward enforcer. We had, when we went into, I think it was the last season of conference that we've played before we went into NL3, we had a player as well called Adam Critchley, who was an Australian guy who went to play for St George Illawarra. So we had a good level, but I think you either had definitely like the enforcer at the time, in my time, and then some talented like northern halfbacks that knew the game really well and could kick. We had a few players that knew the game, but John Flatman, John went to York City Knights,
yeah,
and then now he's at Wrexham. He was there. He was the chairman at York, and then he's at Wrexham. Sorry, Flatman, but Flatman was great at the game. I called him Spot Boy because we always had to move him out and do his tackling for him. So we accepted the northern knowledge of the game with a bit of
we'll back you.
We'll back you up with a bit of Brummy brute strength and naivety. So I'd say there was that two levels. And again, other players, James Braben, who played for like England students, really knew the game. We had a lot of people that knew the game in the back, but we definitely had a strong pack.
Mark, I'm just wondering, it might be a little bit of a loaded question, and there's a very obvious answer in my point of view, but I wonder if there's something else that you could share with us. And that is, if you imagine we send a message to the RFL and say, look, Birmingham is an area to target to grow rugby league, because what would those reasons be?
I think the primary reason is if you target a lot of the inner city areas around Birmingham, there's a lot of talent within sports. They might not make it to football, they might not make it to athletics, but it's not like our day where I sound really old, I am. Where these kids are all eating the right food. They've got the fitness.
Well, they don't booze anymore.
No,
do youngsters nowadays. It's weird, isn't
it? and they've got this fitness level. And I know, again, if you push them towards rugby union, that's one thing, but it's a harder game to learn. There's a massive player talent pool within this area that could feed rugby league. And I think the biggest thing for me this year was seeing how many Midlands teams are suddenly starting to appear. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
Let's get this pool of players, and some of the younger lads that we've had come and play for us this year from the inner city. They're like, we didn't even know rugby league. We've seen a little bit on the telly. They've come in. They've really loved it. So I think the RFL should definitely. I think losing the community coaches within all areas was a massive loss. Going out to the schools and showing them. The government saying we need to get kids fit, we need to give them this, and you're taking one avenue and removing it because you lost them community coaches. So I think if you put, if you had some community coaches in different areas in the Midlands, then I think it would flourish, and I think it would be good for all aspects. So that's what.
Do you think there's anything we can learn from the past? So, Birmingham Rugby League has been in Birmingham for 30 odd years now, but it's never really blown up, has it? Okay, we do have a Midlands-based League One team at the minute. Do you think there's anything we can learn from the past to help it grow now?
I think what we should learn from the past is we got to a point where we had like 2 open age sides. We had a great youth section, and with Russell, with Pinky as a community coach at the time, and him going into the schools was definitely the momentum behind us growing. Because as soon as he came and he was getting into the schools, even though we'd gone into schools before and coached and had some like inter-school rugby league, as soon as he came and he was a paid RFL employee, if you like, it really helped, and it grew and grew and grew. I think the proof's in the pudding. As soon as they removed Pinky, then it kind of receded and went back into someone that can't give it the commitment, and it just dwindled down. And he was Pinky was such a he was so into the sport. He was such everything about him was rugby league, and he was so up for the game and so passionate. It was, I think if you had one of him in those areas, like someone like Rich would be perfect. Well, if you took Rich now, not that he'd leave his job, or he could get him part time and say, the RFL got into Rich and went, look, Rich, we want you to go into schools, we want you to push it and base it around the two, the Bulldogs and the Warriors, say, in that area, and maybe connect with Jay Spafford over at New Ravens, because it's not it's North South Birmingham, really. Yeah. 2 South Birmingham teams and us in North Birmingham. If you push that, I think getting someone like Rich out there again, who loves the game, is passionate, would be massive. It's just getting them to, see that and put their hands in their pockets. But the proof's in the pudding. We had a community coach. He went down. Jacob, who came through that section when Pinky was there, is now playing for the Broncos. He was on Lee's books. He's on loan there. So the proof there is there. That it can be done, but they've got to see a little bit outside of that. They can't just bring the barriers in and stop. They've got to stay out there, I think.
Okay, let's move on to Aston Warriors then.
Yeah.
Can we start? One of the things with your team that really catches me is obviously the striking branding.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's an absolute brilliant stroke of design. Creating a culture and all that. So Rich told us a little bit about it, but can you dive into it a little bit more and perhaps talk us about what the inspiration was and why you went down those lines?
So when we first came up with the idea, we knew it was going to be, we've got to form an identity, because people want to belong to something, So as I mentioned before, we was going to do the Aston Villains, me being a Villa fan and it being close to Aston, in Aston, we thought if we do a claret and blue strip, we can sell all this merchandise on and be quids in, and that'll help the club. And then Rich went, yeah, but what about all the blue noses as well? That I was like, okay, we see these. So we cut the Aston Villains away, and then we looked at the demographic of the club, which the major part of the player pool was going to come out of Aston. There was all these players from all these different areas and countries, and we it's a bit of a tribe. It's a bit of the social aspect down there, and the community is great. So it is a bit like a tribe. So we thought, let's go with the Warriors, keep it simple. And then from then, Rich was like, right, you go away and do all the kit. So we went through so many designs and trying to make it cool, because there's lots of stash forts. Apparently there's one in this room as well. So I wanted to make it something that people would buy into and want to be part of that identity. So I went away sometimes when I was at work looking for all these things, and obviously being in the film industry and costume, I've got a smorgasbord of people around me that are like, do you think this is cool? No, shit. They don't pull any punches. So then we went back to, we looked at a couple of different kit suppliers, and Aston, the union side, were already with Akuma. So we went with Akuma and says, these are the ideas. And then it grew from there. And then once we seen the shirt, which again it's not meant to represent Maori and Kiwi, it's just meant to represent tribal. So there's different elements of different tattoos in there. Yeah. But as mentioned in the other meeting, I guess if you pull a lot of the guys' shirts off, especially from my era, they've either got a tribal that's something to do with Dusk Till Dawn, or a Maori or a Polynesian anywhere. So that was the connection. It was trying to be, that all-inclusive, group of people. So that's where it come from. And then the caps came, and the other bits and pieces came, and then we did, some T-shirts for the commemorative day for Rob Burrows, and we did the T-shirts again with the Warrior and Burrow and 7 on the back. So it all grew out of that, and trying to create this identity of making it cool. And if we sell kit, we can put that into, people want to buy stuff, then we can put that into equipment and stuff that we need, because we're a new club, and a lot of it has been funded by myself and a few others who, just want to see this thing get off the ground. And it was definitely born from the belief that a rugby league side's needed in North Birmingham.
I'm going to venture away a little bit here. You talked about the fact that you're involved in the film industry. I'm quite intrigued, because I know Rich, I feel like it's a follow-on episode. It very much feels like that. He mentioned that a few rumours that you'd driven a tank in the Expendables, or if you could go, it sounds fascinating. I'd love to just hear a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's a weird journey. My journey into the film industry. I was actually a jeweller in Birmingham, and I got a call one day saying, we hear you're the guy that we need to speak to. We're working on a Brad Pitt film called Fury, and we know. And I was like, I thought it was one of the rugby lads. I was like, yeah, all right, mate. Put the phone down, and it came out of my dad. My dad was in the Special Air Service. My granddad was in the Royal Navy, and they'd always collected military uniforms. And I'd collected military uniforms when it wasn't really a big thing. And this, I'd done some work for the American Army in Europe with their museums. They always do little displays and stuff. So they'd get uniforms from me, and I'd put the mannequins, and then, yeah, that's what you need, that's right. And then they put them on the displays. So when this World War II film came up called Fury, I'd already had the connection from doing some History Channel stuff and some BBC World War II connected stuff.
Yeah. And
this guy called, I'll never forget his name, and he's still in the film industry now. His name's Fraser Fennell Ball. And he was like, we wait to this Brad Pitt film, and I was like, it's a wind up. Went back to eat my sandwich. And at the same time, weirdly enough, my friend had bought a Sherman tank. Just he thought, this is going to be an investment. It's a straight.
yeah, that's how I think.
So my mate Gav had bought a Sherman tank, and he'd phone me, and he's like, have you had a call off this guy called Fraser Fennell Ball? And I was like, yeah, hilarious. I was like, if it's not one of the rugby lads, it's going to be you. He goes, no, it's a thing. You need to phone him back. So I phoned him back. I was like, sorry about that. I've found out you're legit now, and we laughed it off. And he said, well, can you come for a meeting at Pinewood Studios? And I was like, I thought, I'm still going to get there. It's going to be a fucking wind up when I get there. So to meet with the director, and I said, who's the director? And he says his name's David Eyre, and he did this film called End of Watch, which was about 2 police guys in a car, which I really love. So I went along there and got booked in, sat in the office, and he came in and we spoke about it, and he was like questioning us on what we knew and stuff. And then halfway through that meeting, Shia LaBeouf came in. I was like, he's either a really good lookalike, he's definitely kosher. And then John Bernthal come in, and Michael Pena. So it was like, it's got to be real. So then that was the start of my film career. And then obviously the tank that is mentioned was Gavin's tank, and at the time they had a lot of people working around them that didn't really know what they was doing. So the main tank, Brad Pitt as the commander, and then Shire and Michael, and John on there, and Logan Learman was another actor that was in that tank. So there was like, can you run alongside and help drive the tank and show people what to do and all that? And it was like, yeah, fuck it, but we'll do it. So that's how it started, and then from that film I just went really from one to the other. So at the time, my company was in the jewellery quarters when they were showing customers around. It was like, Mark's not here, he's been absconded by Hollywood, really using it as a big thing.
Yeah.
And then I went back to him. I was like, I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
I've been offered another job, and then I went from there. And then Mission Impossible, Dunkirk, Masters of the Air recently, Wonder Woman. There's loads. It was totally that's how it happened. It was like totally by.
So what's your role in the, like, within the film industry now?
So
besides driving tanks and stuff like that.
So when I get credited now, I get credited as a military costume,
right,
or assistant costume designer. I'm currently doing the new Bridget Jones, which has no military on there, but I'm the assistant costume designer.
Right.
On that at the moment, so it's not always military stuff. You know, you have to do handbags and skirts and that kind of stuff as well. But predominantly, I get called up to do military films. We've recently, with the film industry growing in Birmingham, with Stephen Knight having his studios built here, we did a film, a series that was on the BBC called This Town, which was all about Scar and Two-Tone.
I watched it. Brilliant. I absolutely loved it.
So that was one of mine, along with the designer Molly Rowe. So yeah, we're trying to get more.
So you was like it was all Doc Martens. There was Doc Martens, wasn't there? There's it was a huge array of fashion, wasn't there, in that film?
So it was that when I got offered that job, it was I'd gone from Masters of the Air, which is a big Spielberg Hanks job.
Yeah, watched this, yeah.
So I'd done that, and I was the main military costume person on that. And then I went on to Boys in the Boat, with which is a George Clooney film, which I'd worked with him before on a project called Catch-22. And then I got a call about this job in Birmingham. And I'll be honest with you, most of the jobs that come to Birmingham they're not worth it.
Yeah.
No, they're just TV stuff. That's just throwaway TV. And then I got called about this job, and I'd previously worked with the designer Molly before, and it was like, we've got this job. I was like, yeah, what is it? Is it Doctors again? Is it one of these? I was like, I'm not interested. I was like, no, it's set in 1981. It's all Scar, Two-Tone, you know, early casual, skins, you know, and I was like, okay, send me the script. So I read the script. Already had a connection with the Two-Tone Museum in Coventry, and they'd heard a bit about it. So that's how I ended up with it. I mean, the best part about that for me was I got a call from Jerry Dammers from the specials when I was on there. I was like, who's this number? And it was like, hi Mark, it's Jerry, you know, do you know about this thing? And obviously then I said, well, this is above my pay grade, but he spoke to the producer and all that. So yeah, it was great. And then, but you know, I think one of my earliest groups was like the Specials and the Selector and the Beat from Birmingham. So doing that was like, I could actually say, you know, that's wrong, because I'd been there, and I'd usually read scripts like, you know, I worked in LA on Tenant, and I'd read these scripts. I don't know these places, and I don't know what it is, but I got this one. It's like Lowe's Hours 1981. I was like, so I lived there, and then, you know, all these places I knew them. So it was a bit weird. I got a bit of imposter syndrome, honestly, when I came back to film that, because you'd go to places that you grew up in, and we went into a church, St George's Church in Newtown, which is I literally grew up there, and the DOP, who's the director of photography, said, who'd live in a shithole like this, basically. And I was like, I grew up here. I was like, that mum and dad there, granddad was there. This was my flat. And as we went into the church, there was all these pictures from the years, and there was me as a Cub Scout in the church, which was like, you know, how did I come this weird circle? I feel like one of the most fortunate people to get it. It's not all red carpets and glory, but it's definitely, I've been all over the world and done some big jobs with some great people. So that's how that happened.
I think one of the things some people will be curious about now is like what a day. You've probably got many different types of day, but what would a typical day consist of?
So you get up really early in the morning, depending on what principal actor's in. So the cast, obviously, they always come in a bit later than the background. So you go in and make sure that the cast are set and all their costumes and they're looked after. Then you go and dress the crowd. So in a big scene like something on This Town, where you see the big club scene, you obviously have to make sure you've got the different tribal connections again. The Skins, the Mods, the Rude Boys are all, in the right kit, and everything's authentic. That's one of the things I get brought in for, authenticity. Because if something's wrong, I'm like, that's the wrong coloured lace, that means something else also. So you do that, and then you do a big lineup. Then you go on to set. They set up all the shots. They do a rehearsal. Cameras start rolling, and then it's called an establisher. So if you two guys were dressing you, we'd establish and they look great in what they've got, and then you go on to the next. I'd come off set then, look at the next day. If there's a problem, go back onto set, depending on what's happening. That's basically what I do.
But there's obviously a lot of research, particularly with the military stuff.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of research goes into being able to do that as well.
Yeah, I think there's always this thing when you've done a project, when you release it, that you want to see that everybody, I don't care what people say, everybody looks for the comments and touch wood. Luckily, I research everything down to the, especially the military stuff, anything that we do, anything that's historical. We look into the detail. It's got to be right, because gone are them days where, you know, on a German soldier, you can have a, you know, German eagle the size of a seagull. You know, people know they know what it's meant to look like and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, again, as a correct representation for the, you know, these real guys, maybe just Masters of the Air were all real characters, and a lot of them died. So out of respect for the veterans and portraying them right, there's always that level of authenticity and detail that as a person I want to put in. But it's an expectation. If they pull me in, it's got to be right. For the Masters of the Air job, you know, Hanks and Spielberg's were like on it straight away. You know, we'd done a couple of Zoom like meetings, and then Spielberg never came over, but Hanks did. But Spielberg and Hanks's main guy, Gary Goldsman, is their producer. He was always there, and you know, it's got some great reviews. But we had to compete with things like Band of Brothers, which was, to me, is a classic. It's, you know, Private Ryan. You know, there's all these big things, and the military advisor that we had on to Masters of the Air was a guy called Dal Dye, ex-US Marine, and he'd done Platoon and Band of Brothers and all that. So he came in, and he was, from the start, he wants to, you know, who's this British guy that's basically telling me about American stuff. But after a bit, I just span him around in circles, because, you know, I know that stuff. I did my research. I'm not going to get caught out. And we kind of had a really good relationship. So that's basically my job. It's boring now. I've explained it, innit?
No, that's not what I mean. You know, Spielberg or Hanks or Stephen Knight, any of them rugby league fans have any interest?
The funny thing is, Tom Hanks is an Aston Villa fan.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
So what aspects of
what I did do at the beginning of this year, there's a film coming out called Nuremberg, where Russell Crowe is playing Hermann Goering. I did speak to him about the Rabbitohs, and I've tried to get some stuff off him. So that was my only rugby league connection with Phil.
With Phil, yeah.
Are you still in contact with him?
He's just gone on to a job.
Mate, he's doing a tour at the minute, and he's with his band.
Is he?
And he's playing in Leeds next month.
Really?
I have literally already sent an email off to, just out of chance. I know he's, you know.
I mean, I could try my best. To be fair, like, I think the thing I always get from, like, actors is people say, well, you've got to be careful of them, you've got to be careful of that. I think because I'm not really from that I didn't grow up in that world.
Yeah.
I'll talk to them like you talk to me, and if you give me, like, if I was sat here again with Jimmy Lowe's or a war veteran, I'd be like, oh, do you know? But they're just people paid money to be another person. And if you're straight with them and have a laugh with them, they're great. On that film, Remy Malek's playing like a psychiatrist, Russell's playing Goering, and there's a real good British up-and-coming actor called Leo Woodall that I worked with at the beginning of the year, and funnily enough, then ended up on the next job on this Bridget Jones. So there's that connection. But if I'll try, I've definitely got a connection. Like Jean Paolo, who's his main dresser, I've got his details, and he's a real cool Italian guy. So if you want it, I can try my best for you,
mate.
That would be hilarious.
Well, we'd even travel to him.
Come in, yeah. Coming to a Rugby League Outsiders episode, not too distant future.
So my question was going to be, what aspects of your day-to-day job then maps across to your involvement with the Rugby League team?
Definitely, like, getting the clothing, the stash. Definitely. I know if someone's saying to me it's going to take this long, I'm like, it's not going to take that long, because the film industry is the most impatient industry. I know companies that will say it's going to take me 3 weeks and you can get it in 2 days. So that definitely translates across. And I think the relationship that you nurture with the companies and suppliers, and definitely trying to get sponsors and things like that really, really work. And it's definitely stood me in good stead for things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like, if anything, you're tenacious and determined. Yeah. And, you know, you says how many times you take a no, but, you know, but still keep going with a, no, come on, you know, I'm sure we can do something.
Constantly, like, I know the guy who deals with the stash for Aston Warriors is also dealing with the Kumani. We had a conversation yesterday. He was like, how did you get it in such a short time? I was like, I'll just be nice. And he's like, come on, eh? I was like, sometimes you've just got to be nice, and they'll be nice back to you. And, you know, we've had a great reception of them. The caps were a different story. We got them done somewhere else because we didn't sign up exclusively with the Puma. And then,
They're through dark, aren't they?
Yeah. So we got the Through Dark caps. They came from a job they was doing because Stas is from Through Dark. He's ex-Marine.
Yeah.
So are you. Yeah. So we had stuff originally for Mission Impossible. Was that Fallout? Mission Impossible Fallout, I think we had for that. And then we bought these caps for another job, and then they never got used. So we're like, we got these caps. Let's use them as well. So there's that kind of connection there as well. But
most expensive stash in rugby league. There's about £600 a cap in it.
I'll try anything, to be honest with you. If it's there, I'll try and use it.
But that's probably another skill that you brought into the club and stand in good stead.
Well, it's what we're trying to, again, if we can make build that identity and make people want to be part of it. If it's cool, then it's my version of cool, and maybe it's not cool to some people, but it's like trying to get people to buy into this identity. And when we turn up, if everybody looks the same, then you get that professionalism there. Even down to doing the social media, it's like picking songs with the word warrior in and stuff like that. Trying to connect it together, which is the social media's run by my son's partner Kate, and she's like, "What song do you want me this?" But no, you only have to tell her, because we obviously know each other so well. She's like, "I know what you want," so she just kind of deals with it. So yeah, I get a lot of that crosses over and hopefully helps in the future.
So, looking at your first season, because you literally just finished the season, haven't you? Last week was, I believe, the last game.
Yeah, we had a round robin.
Yeah, a three-way, as they were calling it, the Quantums. They actually called it a foursome at one point. Well, there were actually only three teams, weren't there?
Typical
classic Quantums, yeah. Anyway, sum up your season then. How do you think your first year's gone? It seems to have been successful.
Yeah, I mean, when we started it, even up to the first game, you're like, let's try this. And we're getting 20 people at training. We're like, are we going to get a team? Going again back to them early days of Birmingham, and you're travelling with 9 players, and you turn up, what's happened? We had another minibus, but it broke down kind of situation. How many times have you heard that? So we didn't know. And the first game, I wasn't there. I was working on Bridget Jones in London, and Rich was constantly on the phone. I was in an area that had crap signal. So it was, please, let's get this first win off. And I know, the Ravens, there's a lot of guys there that know rugby league, and Jace Spafford knows rugby league. I mean, he's still running out now. He's not what he was. Sorry, Jace. He used to be he's still a great player, but Jace, when he was younger, was like someone else. I think they're going to come with the rugby league brain. We'd had 2-3 training sessions. So there was Rich was saying there was not an issue like not playing the ball. There was a few things that they weren't doing, following the ball around, like rugby union. So we got that first victory and okay, we've got something here. And then we got the next victory. And the next victory, I think the biggest litmus test for us this year was having a friendly against the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
And, they turned up, they had a couple of players missing, but it was their first team. And we put out a team, and we didn't know how it was going to go. And it was because I'd wanted the Bulldogs to come down there. I'd be lying if I didn't want to say I wanted the Warriors to win. Just say, But we played that game. Birmingham was still a good side. I can't take nothing away, from what they're doing. And to win that game was great. And then it was like, right, we've just got to get the reverse fixture at the Ravens. So we beat those, and then this 3-way foursome. It was a 3-way. We went there, and we didn't travel. We didn't have a huge team to travel with, but we thought, let's see this last game out, and then we've done this season, and we can build on next year. That was mine and Rich's and the team's ethos, really, to get this one done, and then let's build on next year. So that's what we did, and then we beat the Rebels. It was close the first game, to be honest with you, that first 40, and then we played the Quantums and strolled that quite easily, but it was great. I think we've had, a great season. It'd be different if we'd be losing, because, we want to build on a successful season. The main question people keep asking us is like, do you think you should have started in that higher league? And I was like, not really, because we could have been left with a lot of egg on our face. We didn't know how it was going to go. And again, what's the future for next year? do you want to go into that league? And Rich has so we can compete in that league, and I've no doubt we can. And coming towards the end, people are like, is there another game? So we're attracting more and more players from quite a high calibre. And we're like, we don't know. I think for me, and it's still open for discussion with Rich and the rest of the backroom team, is that what I'd like to do is maybe stay in that division next year and build it up, but then push a women's and junior side to get some foundations. Because it was more what I kept saying to the Bulldogs when I wanted them to come back to Aston is, if you want to build, like Telford have done really well, they've built a foundation, they haven't built a team, they've built a club. And as I said before, I remember Telford when it was just an open age side, then that went away and came back. I think the success to any community club, which is what we are, is you've got to have those foundations in place. And if you're pulling from a rugby union player pool, if you can facilitate the family, then you'll build a community which then prospers together. So I think that would be where I want to go. Obviously, we're still discussing it with Rich, because Rich is like Mr. Rugby League and might have different.
What's your feelings on the fact that the Rugby League season's so short at the minute? The Rugby Union season is encroaching on both ends of the Rugby League season at the minute. It's getting longer with the cup games at the end of the season. They're starting earlier. Yeah.
I think that did impact on us this year, especially, with Aston's, a lot of the players coming from Aston, and they got promotion and they won the cup, so their games went on and on and on. And what's your, I suppose, what is your plan to be able to extend the league games? So what we're trying to do is nurture a better relationship with the union coach, which we have. But there's always been that thing with him, like, I don't want him playing there because of, or they need to stop playing here. And I was like, my thing is, unless you're paying someone money, they play whenever they want.
Yeah, of course.
Which is why we want everybody to enjoy and carry on. For spreading out and having more fixtures. I mean, I don't know. I never knew till going back into this Merit League, what hard travel is, people travelling to each other, and it's like, this thing. Are you going to come to us because you didn't come to us last year when we come to you? I hadn't experienced anything that, because like when we played, it was like conference NL3. You went and that was it. It was like I was there from watching it grow to the minibus with the piece of paper on them A8 route finders, like where we're going, to Birmingham being just going up, and then being on coaches, and I forget, was it a coach that we had called Aidan Walker, who I think came from, was it Wigan, perhaps, or Blackbrook or something, and I'm sure he was the Irish defensive rugby union coach, and when he came, he made everything like professional, stop drinking that fucking Red Bull shit and doing all that. So when it went to this extreme where it was like everything was thought out, then to go to experience this Merit League now is a bit of a culture shock in a nice way, because it meant that we can grow the team slower and in a more controlled way. But it was a bit like, if we're gonna play you, you've got to come and you've got to do the reverse fixture. So that was a bit weird.
Yeah, something to work on next year, isn't it? That I think there's conversations already happening, isn't there, about having more, call them 3-way games. Yeah, I think maybe that's the way forward next year.
I mean, I was when the Quantum suggested this for you, we just wanted the reverse fixture against Quantums. We wanted a proper game, and then actually when I got there, I was like, this is good for the game.
Yeah.
And then when we travelled with like 17 players, and then when people were blowing or wanted a rest, or they were carrying an injury, then we could tap on to another team's player. Spaff ran out in a Warriors shirt, which we've got pictures of, and a couple of the other guys ran out, and it was good to see that like camaraderie between the teams, and I definitely think that's good for the sport. And again, if you build that relationship, then if we haven't got any kind of relationship or camaraderie, it's easier for me to not bother travel to you.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
If we've got a relationship, I don't want to let you down. I've still got that with Jace now. Like, it's when Jace comes off for the other team, I always like put my eye on. People find it weird. I was like, he's been my mate for years. You know what I mean? So I think that having that, people work together in that way would definitely help the game flourish. And I don't think people should look past that. I felt sorry for the ref because he'd ran through. He did a sterling job, but he'd done.
Yeah, Mark Austin won it. He did like 3 games.
Just rename him Steve Austin, I think. He did the whole game and did a sterling job. So, but that environment and atmosphere there was great. I think if you made more of the event, planned more in advance, that it's going to be like if we had a 3-bay, not us, the Thieves had a 3-bay at Aston, then like we'd put on like the bouncy castle, the barbecue and all that, and make an event of it. Because then again, if you're dragging your family with us, they're getting a day out of it.
Yeah,
it's again, that's something that we've tried to do at Aston. If people come down, we've done like a Caribbean curry, or we've had a barbecue and we've had a bouncy castle and jugs for the boys and that, to try and make people like, oh, this is a nice place to go to. I don't know if that's why the RFL have let us have the finals at Aston this year, which we didn't think would happen. But they won it.
I was wondering where the finals were this year.
It's just been announced
Today, all right. Well, there you go.
Yeah, big news.
Big news, yeah.
We always encourage people to shout out some of the people, the standout people involved in their club, not just players, but we like to hear about players as well that have helped along the way, helped this season. And who would those people be for you?
Dick Squires.
Yeah, definitely Dick Squires, old Dickie Squires. Rich is already lost the stalwart. Watching him, his enthusiasm for the game is like something second to none. And I think anybody's got to agree that having a coach at that level in the Merit League is like, I've said to him, hats off to you, because I love it. Me and Rich have got, quite a good relationship. Obviously the Bradford thing helped. But yeah, Rich has been a massive part, and, he does so much. He says the same about me, but he does so much behind the scenes and, to keep the wheels turning. And Rich has got that character that you'll buy into. If he's your mate, you'll turn up for him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's a massive part. I think Kate, who does our social media, has been massive for us this year. Literally, it was going to go two ways with doing the social media. We was going to go with Aston's existing people or do our own. So Aston's existing girls kind of tied up and there was something going on. So I literally went to her like a couple of weeks before. I was like, do you reckon you could do this? She was like, well, she's done it, and she kind of flew with it. So not only has she done that, any of the warm-up T-shirts that we've had with Warriors on, Kate's printed because she's in the film industry as well, so she knows how. She's done all the T-shirts for us with like the Warriors warm-up T-shirts and the Borough T-shirts and things like that. So she's been a massive part of doing all that. My wife, as like Rich said before, is like totally understanding what I'm doing. She loves rugby league anyway because she can understand it. She actually plays rugby union herself. She started a couple of years ago, but she's been there and through every step of the way. My son Brad played. He's got a knee injury, so he hasn't played in the last game, but he's been there as well. They've all followed this crazy, we can make this work. Yeah. And they were like, oh God, are you sure this is going to work? And they all bought into it. And I think the other key people for me, Julius, who you had here, is so charismatic and such a happy lad. And again, he's been very for it. Ethan, the Aston skipper as well. All the staff, Julie and Mandy, the bar staff that are at Aston, they've been there. My other two daughters, Sophie and Millie, have sold merchandise, and Sophie's cooked a lot of the food as well and done that. So it's been kind of a family affair. But I think there's so many people that you could shout out that do their little part that wouldn't work without it. But to me, that this year, that those are the key players, and indeed everyone who's pulled on an Aston shirt has actually bought into something that didn't exist 6 months ago. So that's massive. Yeah, great. I mean, Jay Spafford as well, really was like, I was like, do you think this will work? And he was like, yeah. And then I went to the old boys, like Tony, who was going to come today, Darren Parkin and James Topham, and I was like, what do you? There was like, just it'll work, just go for it. So yeah, there's been a lot of people. I mean, respect to the people that push any rugby league outside. You guys doing this, it's like I said to Rich on the main, considering it's out of a rugby league heartland, what a great podcast. It's engaging, and I think there's a lot of people. But from the Warriors, that's who I would shout out.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think you've had a cracking first season, and to say that it sort of emerged from almost nowhere, whether that's planned or it just had to be like that, it's quite phenomenal, really. And it's been definitely something that we've kept an eye on because it's just piqued our interest, and look forward to seeing where we get up to next year.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be more of the same. We've a lot of us as well, and the old boys have continued to help the Bulldogs wherever we can because of people leaving and not helping, and we've helped them. But yeah, for the Warriors, hopefully it's onwards and upwards. We kind of got to the last game, and then me and Rich already on the phone. Right, so for next year we'll do this. If we start this and do that, and try and put some things in place and make it more of a real rugby league club that ties into Aston. We've already gone out for sponsorships already, and trying to make some of the infrastructure at Aston Rugby Union be part of the rugby league side, because I think every rugby league side within the Midlands, only from my experience, you're always hosted by a rugby union side, so it's never really your home, it's their home and you're a visitor.
Yeah.
And like Aston have been like, I was like, can we have a shirt up in there, can we have, and they're like, yeah, they've been great, and really there was a few people that were a bit sceptical at first, I think, but it's always the way that for some reason, again, I've spoke about this Rich, that old rugby union, rugby league, it's crazy. I think both people say, what sport do you prefer playing? I was like, well, league, because that's, but if put me in the centres, I enjoyed that as well. I think it's a lot about the people that you play with, but if we can create a home at Aston and it feels like a rugby league home as well as a rugby union home, that's a massive thing. And then grow this community team. If we can get some support for the RFL, it would be great.
Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure for you coming on, both learning more, should I say, about Aston and about the film industry as well. I found that absolutely brilliant. So thank you for taking the time to come on. Is there anything else we should have asked you?
No, I think the one thing that when I've seen the podcasts from the Birmingham guys, I just think the history, like we touched on it first, how long rugby league has actually been in the Midlands. It's 35 years for a sport that's out of its grassroots area is something unbelievable. For John and Joy are not in the best health at the moment, and what I find like rewarding is we had something from the RFL actually saying to John, thank you for, which we presented to the Bulldogs after our game. We asked the RFL through John Flatman could the RFL give him anything, and we've given him a letter that we framed and presented to the Bulldogs. Without them, there wouldn't be, in my opinion, any Midlands Rugby League. But I think if we carry on supporting the Bulldogs, carry on supporting the Warriors, any Midlands Rugby League, then it can only be a positive thing.
Brilliant. Okay, Matt, just like Karl said, absolute privilege listening to your story, your route through rugby, your back, what you're doing right now, and phenomenal to hear about Aston. So again, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.